الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام التحية والإكرام على النبي الأمي العربي القرشي المكي المدني الهاشمي صاحب قاب قوسين محبوب رب المشرقين والمغربين شد الحسن والحسين النبي الحرمين والإمام القبلتين والرسول الثقلين الذين سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتخبين المنتجبين لا سيما بقية الله في العالمين. روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء واللعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم وغاصب حقوقهم أجمعين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه تبارك وتعالى في محكم كتابه ومتقن خطابه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وابتغوا إليه الوسيلة وجاهدوا في سبيل الله لعلكم تفلحون. رسالة صلوات على محمد وعلى اللهم صل على Shuhada of Karbala recited another salawat ala Muhammad wa ala and to hasten the near parents of our awaited Imam recited another salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. Before I start, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to all those youngsters who participate in the majlis today, to increase their tawfiqat and tawfiqat of their parents as well. For their increase of tawfiqat, I like this salawat Muhammadi. Recite a salawat Muhammadi. Allahumma salli ala This ayat of Holy Quran which I've recited in front of you is very well known, very famous ayat of Holy Quran. It's ayat number 35 of Surah Al-Ma'idah, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives believers commandment regarding three very important things. We're only going to be speaking about one of them, but we'll mention the translation of the verse and then inshallah we'll go on to our discussion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, O you who believe, O those of you who claim to believe, upon you is to observe taqwa and to find the wasila towards Him and strive in His way. Whoever does these three things, لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ, maybe that person might be successful in their lives. The order of the things are also very important. Again, very briefly in a little bit of an introduction, but then we want to discuss wasila. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us an order. He says that first of all you have to believe. Once you believe, then you observe taqwa. Then once you observe taqwa, then you find the means of wasila, means the means to reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you strive, wajahadu fi sabilillah, then you strive and you struggle in His way. If you do all of these things correctly, then there's a chance for a person to be successful. So, with regards to belief, with regards to Iman, and with regards to Taqwa, these are very important topics. Also topics that you're all very familiar with. In terms of Iman, we know what constitutes Iman. Holy Prophet of Islam says that Islam is for a person to attest the faith, to say the statements regarding what beliefs are. And when that belief which he states enters into his heart, this is Iman. And when that Iman manifests itself in action, that's called Taqwa. When that Iman which was stated by the tongue and entered into the heart, when it manifests itself, when it demonstrates itself through action, it becomes Taqwa. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that in addition to taqwa, one needs to find ways of wasila, ways of means of nearness towards Him. Now in this regard, this particular topic becomes point of contention because some people, some groups of Muslims, they state that why do you need to have wasila for anything? What is the need for having wasila? Should be you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. There is no need for anybody else in between. But we have to take the religion not from our mind or our understanding, but from Quran and from Holy Prophet of Islam and from Ahlul Badr. So we have to find out, what do they say? What does Quran say about this area? This is why I've started with this. And what does the Holy Prophet Islam and what do Ahlul Badr say about this particular topic? Before we even go to that discussion, we look at something from within our own lives. And this, because it's so close to us in our own lives, we're able to observe this. Everybody's able to observe this, even if whether they believe or they don't believe. That is the example of how how a new life comes into existence in this world. All Muslims, and in fact all those who believe in any kind of creator, believe that he is Qadir. For us, we use the verses from Quran, وَهُوَ عَلَىٰ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. He has power over everything. So he also has the power to have created every human being by saying kun fayakun, like he created Adam, like he created Isa alayhi salam, like he created other things as miracles and as ways to show his power. But for the vast majority of us, he did not create us in that way. Instead, he created us through the wasila of mother and father. The human being came into existence through wasila of mother and father. And not only did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create us in this way and then say that's it, but He raised and elevated the status of mother and father to this level that He says that you will worship nobody except for me. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Straight after the discussion about obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, you will be, we translate this, unfortunately in English we have this problem that we don't have words to translate. So we translate this, you read the translation of Quran, this is from Surah Ankabut. You read the translation of Quran, it says you will do good to your parents. No, you will do more than good to your parents. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا means you will go out of your way to do good to your parents. You will do more than that which is required. Ihsan is that which cannot be returned. And of course we know that whatever we do for our parents, it cannot be even for one breath of what they did for us. Why? Because Rasulullah said, he gave us the philosophy. He said, why? He said, because whatever you do for them, you will be waiting for them to die, and whatever they did for you, they were looking out for you to live. So there's no comparison. Whatever they did for you is for you to live. Whatever you're doing for them, you're waiting for them to die. So therefore there's no comparison in between whatever the parents did for me and what I can do for them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us in this first instance the commandment of ihtiram, of respect for wasila. That this is the wasila that brought you into this world. And not only did they bring you into this world, but because they acted as agents for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is the creator, Allah is Khaliq, but they were the wasila for bringing you into this world. I made their respect so important and so paramount that it's only next to worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now when it came to this matter of creation, did he stop there? No, he went even further than that. When the baby is born and then he or she is hungry, who does he or she call out to? The baby, when it's hungry, it calls out to its mother. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't make in the fitrat of the baby, it should say, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, you are Raziq. You are the one who gives rizq to everyone, even to that baby. In Dua Joshan and Kabir that we recite in holy month of Ramadan, we say that you are the one who gives the rizq even to the oldest man and even to the baby. So we believe that rizq comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sustenance comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, food comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when the baby cries, it cries for its mother. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the mother the wasila of the baby receiving rizq. Even when the baby grows up, when the baby becomes a child, he's still dependent on parents. When he grows older and he goes to school, now he's dependent on the teachers. When he grows even older, he's now dependent on the employer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that I created you in this way that throughout your life you will be need of somebody else in order to receive whatever you need. You cannot live by yourself without associating with other people. You'll always be dependent. And this is in the worldly matters. This is in the matters of creation, of worldly matters, whether to do with education or to do with sustenance or to do with creation. But not only in the worldly matters, in the matters of guidance as well. In fact, in the matters of guidance is so important that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made guidance first and human beings after it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made Adam alayhi salam and made him the guide. Who was he going to guide when there was nobody there? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I made him to guide before human beings are created, so that nobody could say that I was there and there was nobody to guide me. Guidance was first and human beings and people came afterwards. In the matter of guidance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why did he do this? Wasn't it possible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he revealed the book in every single person's house, and then like we hear in the films, you know, from the sky there would be a voice. This is the voice of God. There's a book in your house, read the book and be a good person. But it was not like this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not do this. He spoke, even when he spoke, he only spoke to a couple of special people. He didn't speak to everyone. And the way that guidance came to human beings is through his representatives, through his prophets, through his Aimma alayhi salatu wasalam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent guidance to people. Prophets came, Aimma alayhi salam came in order to guide people. Now, how could a person return then to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when if it hadn't been for these prophets and these imams, then people would not have known about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the first place? Imam Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam says, Bina urif Allah, Bina ubid Allah. If because of us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was recognized. And because of us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was worshipped. If it was not for us, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not be recognized, nor would He be worshipped, because how would people know how to recognize Him? What is the correct way to recognize? How would people know how to worship Him if He had not sent people in order to show how to do it? So in this regard, we use some, like we said, we have to go in this regard to the Quran and to the Seerah of Holy Prophet of Islam. In the Seerah of Holy Prophet of Islam, very interesting event has been mentioned, and this event is mentioned in a book that is written some 500 years ago against our madhab, against the madhab of Shia. And this event is mentioned in that book. The name of the book is Sawa'iq al-Muhriqa. It's written by Ibn Hajar al-Haytami al-Makki. And he mentions this event from the Holy Prophet of Islam's life in this book. He says that one day somebody came to the Holy Prophet of Islam in the masjid, and he was sitting with his companions, and that person said, Ya Rasulullah, I have a problem. I want you to pray for me. I want you to pray that my problem becomes resolved. So Holy Prophet of Islam raised his hands to the sky and he said, Oh Allah, I pray to you for the sake of Ali ibn Abi Talib, resolve this person's problem. Remember, this book is not, you cannot say, I mentioned the reference first, so there is no mention that some Shia wrote this hadith. The Holy Prophet Islam mentioned, and this hadith is written in a book that is written by a person who wants to oppose the madhab of Ahlul Badr. Says that Rasulullah prayed, Oh Allah, resolve this person's problem for the sake of Ali ibn Abi Talib. That person went. Now the people who were sitting there, they were feeling a bit uncomfortable. So one of them poked the other one, he said, what is this? So the other one says to him, don't worry. One day, some problem would come to Ali as well. Then he too would come to us, Rasulullah, to pray for him. Then we will see what happens. So people came and went, and then one day, that day came, that Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam also came to the Holy Prophet. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, I have some difficulty, I want you to pray for me. So Rasulullah raised his hands again and he said, Oh Allah, I pray to you for the sake of Ali ibn Abi Talib to resolve the problem of Ali ibn Abi Talib. So now this person, he's in shock, he stands up, he says, Ya Rasulullah, when the other person came, you prayed for him for the sake of Ali. Okay, we understood. But now Ali himself came and you prayed, you said, Ya Allah, resolve the problem of Ali for the sake of Ali. Rasulullah says to him, that what are you talking about? When even I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I say, Oh Allah, resolve my problem for the sake of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes this asking the most. Recite salawat ala Muhammad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes it the most when somebody asks for the sake of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. Similarly, we mentioned, you'll recall in the first majlis that I mentioned that this remembrance, this commemoration of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam is because Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam's personality is a personality that evokes these reactions, these strong reactions. Is this commemoration itself evokes strong reactions from us. And this of course is after the shahadat of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. That his shahadat has this effect on us, that after his shahadat, after his martyrdom, we feel in this way. But when we look in the lifetime of the Holy Prophet of Islam, this reaction and this effect is not just in the after the shahadat of Imam Hussain, but even in the lifetime of Imam Hussain. In fact, this event is from when Imam Hussain is a baby. He's just been born. And angels are coming down to congratulate Holy Prophet of Islam on this occasion. So there's one angel who's lying there with no wings, and he sees all these angels going down to earth. He says, what's going on? Is there an Eid day today? Why are all of you angels in such armies going down to earth? So Jibreel says to him that Holy Prophet of Islam has had a second grandson. So we have been ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to go and offer congratulations to Holy Prophet of Islam. So Fitrus says to them that, take me to the Holy Prophet. Maybe he might help me in this matter. So Fitrus, he comes down with Jibreel, and Jibreel and the angels come and offer congratulations to the Prophet. Then Jibreel says to Fitrus, says to Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, this is the matter. Now, surely Holy Prophet of Islam should have said that this matter is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why did you come to me to resolve this matter? It's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah took away your wings based on some action that you did or you didn't do. Why did you come to me in order to try and resolve this matter? Instead, Rasulullah says that Jibreel take him and touch the cradle of Hussain alayhi salam. If he touches the cradle of Hussain alayhi salam, his wings would be restored. When he touches the cradle of Hussain alayhi salam, the wings are restored. He flies up to the heavens and he says, Man mithli, who is like me? So we might say that Fitrus, this is the reason, original reason why your wings were taken away. Now you're doing the same thing again. So you say that no, when I did the first claim, it was a claim and there was no evidence. Today I have evidence. Man mithli ana atiqul Hussain. I have been freed by Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. And that door of freedom from Hussain alayhi salam is open till today. But a person has to come with humility. Whoever comes with humility to this door of Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, he will be freed by Hussain alayhi salam. He would be freed by Hussain alayhi salam, but it has to be a willingness to come and come with humility, the way Fitrus came with humility. But coming back to our point, which is that this is the way of wasila. Now, there might be one question that arises from all of this, which is what? Which is that when Rasulullah came to Mecca, the people, they used to worship idols. But whenever they would ask about the idols, they would say that these idols, we don't think that they are gods. We know that God is one. And these idols are just a way for us to remember and give us a physical form of God. Similarly, when Musa alayhi salatu wasalam went for 40 days and nights, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called him into the wilderness for 40 days and nights. When he left, then the people of Bani Israel, they created a calf made of gold. And they started to worship it. And they also said that we don't believe that this calf is God, but it's just a wasila. Now, how do we find out which is, then we know that that means that there is a right type of wasila and a wrong type of wasila. So how do we find out? The first thing is the clue is from the ayat itself. The ayat says what? The ayat says that, all you who believe, observe taqwa and seek the wasila. That means wasila has already been made. The obligation on believers is to find it, not to create. The mistake from the mushrikeen of Makkah and the mistake from Bani Israel was that they created their own one. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you don't need to create. I have already created them. I have already created them. You just need to find them. That means this gives us another principle, which is our overarching principle in the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, which is what? Is that whatever is man-made, reject it. Whoever is man-made, reject them. Whoever is divinely made, accept them. Whatever is divinely made, accept it. This is the principle of Islam. Further than that, now I give you one more ayat of Quran and the story accompanying that ayat, which remove any shadow of doubt regarding the importance of seeking out to the Holy Prophet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ إِذْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ جَاءُوكَ فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا اللَّهَ وَاسْتَغْفَرَ لَهُمُ الرَّسُولُ لَوَجَدُوا اللَّهَ تَوَّابًا رَحِيمًا. What does this ayat mean and what is the context of its revelation? This is ayat number 64 of Surah An-Nisa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if those who did dhulm on their own nafs, on their own souls, if they came to you, Rasulullah, if they came to you, and Allah they prayed to Allah for their forgiveness, and you prayed for their forgiveness, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be found to be forgiving and merciful. What is the context of this of the verse, of the revelation of this verse? There was a group of people. I want you to bear very carefully this story. There was a group of people in the time of the Prophet who made a plan or a plot to kill the Holy Prophet of Islam. This is mentioned in the tafsir of this verse. That a group of people made a plot to kill the Holy Prophet of Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the Holy Prophet of Islam, and He revealed this verse. That if those people who made a plan to kill the Holy Prophet of Islam, if they came to you and they prayed for forgiveness from Allah, and you prayed for their forgiveness, then Allah would be found to be forgiving and merciful. As far as sins go, there is not many greater than attempting to kill the Prophet. But Allah is saying that I'm willing to forgive that as well. On what condition? If you come to the Prophet and he prays for your forgiveness. What is the need for this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly should forgive or not forgive. What is the concept of coming to the Prophet and Prophet praying for your forgiveness? He says no. That because the Holy Prophet of Islam is the subject of this crime, of this sin, that if you come to the Prophet and he prays for your forgiveness, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you. Now, does that apply only until the time of the Holy Prophet of Islam? But everything in Quran is until Day of Judgment. If something is included in Quran as a commandment, that means it's to the Day of Judgment. But one more answer. We know Quran says on at least 2 occasions regarding shaheed, regarding the one dying in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they are not dead, but they are alive. And they get rizq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That not just they are alive in some spiritual sense. No, but they are getting rizq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That they are alive just the way that we are alive. Otherwise, what is the concept of rizq? Why would rizq be necessary for something that's mujarrad, like soul? Soul doesn't need rizq. So this is to give us the insight into what kind of life that shaheed has. And what is the definition of shaheed? Definition of shaheed, if we summarize, I'll give you one statement, one sentence, is the one who dies on the command of Rasulullah. The one who dies on the command of Rasulullah is shaheed. Rasulullah orders you die, that person when he dies he becomes shaheed. So the one who dies on the command of Rasulullah, he's alive. But Rasulullah himself, he's not alive. The one who dies on the command of Rasulullah, the command of Rasulullah is so important and so powerful that the one who dies on the command of Rasulullah is alive. But for Rasulullah himself, you go there in Medina, they say, come on, go. Rasulullah is dead, ma'adallah. Don't come here to ask for prayers. The Quran is saying, if they came to you and they asked you for forgiveness, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be forgiving and merciful. That doesn't just mean when the Holy Prophet of Islam is there. Until the Day of Judgment, the Holy Prophet of Islam is there. And if we want more evidence for that, when Imam Hassan alayhi salatu salam was killed, and Imam Hussein alayhi salam brought the funeral towards the grave of the Prophet. Certain people had gathered there causing commotion. They wanted to prevent Imam Hussein alayhi salam from being buried. When they were causing commotion, Imam Hussein alayhi salam recited a verse from Quran. He recited the verse from Surah Hujurat. Ya alladhina amanu la tarfa'u aswatakum fawqa sawtin nabi. Don't raise your voices over the voice of the Prophet. That means that even the Prophet is in the grave, he's alive. Don't raise your voices, just like you wouldn't raise your voices while you're in his presence. Just like you wouldn't raise your voices when he's there, you cannot raise your voice when he's in the grave. There's no difference whether he's physically there or he's in the grave. Imam Hussain alayhi salam recited this verse. So in summary, now one more thing to mention before we come towards our conclusion, which is that they'll say everything is fine, but isn't there a verse in Quran that we recite at least 10 times a day? And in that verse you say, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. You alone we worship, and you alone we seek help. So then, how can we seek help from somebody else? How could we seek help from somebody else? So, of course, the more flippant answer to this question is that throughout the day we seek help from multiple people. When we get ill, we go to the doctor. And we have a case, we go to the lawyer, and we want to build a house, we go to the engineer. Why don't we say, Ya Allah, help me? We don't. We go to the people who are responsible for solving the matter in order to solve the matter. And if we sat there and said, Ya Allah, help me, everybody would say, what's wrong with you? Everybody would say, what's wrong with you? So we're seeking help from people throughout our lives and every single day of our lives. Why is it when it comes to a matter of faith this becomes a problem? But also the answer is in this surah itself. We have to read on. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, pray. After you said this, now pray. That's how Allah put me and keep me on Sirat al-Mustaqim, on the right path. Which path is this? How is this identified? Sirat al-ladhina an'amta alayhim. Why didn't he say this is the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why in this, he just said you don't seek help from anybody else except from Allah. Right. This path that we want to go on, how will it be identified? It's the path of Allah. No. It's the path of those from whom you did blessings upon. It's the path of those whom you did blessings upon. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, I want you to be able to identify this path as well. If you say this is the path of Allah, then today we got 100 different types of people saying this is the path of Allah. And they're killing people and they're saying this is the path of Allah. They are oppressing people and they're saying this is the path of Allah. They're killing fellow Muslims, saying they're not Muslims and saying this is the path of Allah. They put the kalima on their flags as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I'm giving you a way and a path and identification how to identify this path which is Sirat al-Mustaqim. What is it? An'amta alayhim, the one which has ni'mat upon it. Which is the path which has ni'mat upon it? Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati. This ni'mat is the wilayat of Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam. This ni'mat is wilayat of Amirul Mu'minin. This is the path. Sirat al-Mustaqim is the sirat, is the path of Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam. Now this path of Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam. Yes, this is the path of Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam. Now to seek out the help of those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made, has appointed as the wasila, has created the wasila, we just have to find it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made them the wasila for guidance, for help. That there's no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has never sent a book without a prophet. He sent prophets without books, but no books without prophets. That means that every book needs somebody to explain. Every book needs somebody to explain. Therefore, this is the first insight into that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent His kalam, His word, His orders. But He's always sent it with a prophet to show what? To show that this book, this kalam needs to be interpreted by somebody who is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Either the prophet or somebody like him. Do we have an example of that? Yes, from the seerah of the Holy Prophet of Islam. Verses of Surah Bara'at are revealed. In the 9th year after Hijrah, verses from Surah Bara'at are revealed. These are verses commanding the people of Mushrikeen of Makkah to leave Makkah, to exit Makkah, to exile, to be expelled from Makkah. These verses are revealed. Holy Prophet of Islam sends somebody with these verses. While he's on the way to Makkah, Jibreel comes down and he says, Ya Rasulullah, either you have to recite these verses or somebody from you has to recite them. Either you have to recite them or somebody minkum, somebody from you. So now if the Prophet himself had gone, we wouldn't know who are minkum. So Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam sends Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam. And Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam goes there and recites these verses. So he tells us that minkum that person is the same as me. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded either you have to go and recite them or somebody from you has to go to recite them. But this path, this way, it's not an easy way. Up to here when we talk about this path, mu'min become happy and peace, as they should. But this path, this way, it's not an easy way. And most significantly is highlighted that this is not an easy way, an easy path from this story of Karbala. And the beginning of the story of Karbala, which is the shaheed that I want to talk about today. Because Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, he's left Medina, and now he's come to Makkah. While he's in Makkah, people are writing him letters. People write him letters, and the number of letters that have come to him are in the thousands. The number of letters which are received to Imam Hussain alayhi salam from the people are in the thousands. But there's two distinct types of letters, and this is very important as well. There's two distinct types of letters. One type of letter, I'll share the contents of that letter. That letter says that the person who is the governor of Kufa, we don't like him. And we don't pray behind him, we don't consider him to be a good person. As for the city of Kufa, it is in a good state, it's in a good place. The rivers are flowing, the trees are loaded with fruit. So come to us and we will make you the Imam over us. This is one type of letter. This letter tells us that if somebody says that I'm going to make you the Imam, that means that that person believes that the making of Imam is in the hands of the people. And the underlying principle of madhab of Ahlul Bayt is what we already mentioned, that Imam is made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not by the people. So this is the type of letter that's come to Imam. Now there's another type of letter which comes to Imam. This type of letter says to the Imam that we want you to come because you are the Imam. You are the Imam and we want you to come because we are being oppressed by the people who were appointed by Yazid. Imam receives all these letters. Finally he gets a letter which the Ruwayat state of Maqatil that when he gets this letter, Imam alayhi salam is shaking. When he reads this letter, he's shaking. This letter says that you are our Imam. And if you don't come, then we will complain on the day of judgment that we called our Imam and he didn't come. This is the underlying principle of madhab of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, that Imam helps the people in whatever circumstances they're in. Even if that comes at a threat to the Imam's own life and own well-being. Imam Hussain alayhi salam at this moment makes this decision to send his wasila to Kufa. He writes a letter and he hands it to Muslim ibn Aqil, but what he writes in that letter is very powerful. He says, Inni ba'athtu ilaykum akhi wa ibna ammi wa thiqati min ahli bayti. I am sending to you my brother and the son of my uncle and the most reliable person from my family. This is not an ordinary person saying. Imam Ma'foom is saying that this person, Muslim ibn Aqil, is the most reliable person from my family. He sends him on the 5th of Shawwal in the 60th year after Hijrah. Some riwayat also state that he sends with him his 2 sons. He says to Muslim, you are a famed warrior. When you go to Kufa, people might think that you've come for the fighting. If you go there with your sons, they will be reassured that you are not here for fighting. Muslim ibn Aqil goes towards Kufa with this letter of Imam. When he arrives, people welcome him. When he arrives there, people welcome him and they pledge their allegiance for Imam Hussein on his hands. When he arrives, he stays at the house of Mukhtar. This is very strategic because Mukhtar is a Shia of Ahlul Bayt, but he's also the son-in-law of Nu'man ibn Bashir, who's the governor of Kufa. So now Muslim ibn Aqil knows that he's safe, that of course the governor will not attack the house of his own daughter. So he's safe in that house. When he stays there, Yazid gets, very quickly I'll mention, Yazid gets this news that people have pledged allegiance to Imam Hussein on Muslim ibn Aqil's hand, and situation in Kufa will turn against you. So Yazid has an advisor called Sir John, who is a Christian. He was an advisor to Yazid's father as well. He says to him, what shall I do? Sir John says, I have a suggestion, but you won't like it. Yazid says, what is it? He says, take Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad from Basra and send him to Kufa. Now, Yazid and Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad are both of similar age. They're both very young, they're both ambitious, and they're both jealous of each other. So Yazid doesn't like Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. Sir John says, this is my suggestion. Yazid says, the problem is that Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, he's already very proud and arrogant, and he thinks that I cannot run the government without him. If I send him to Kufa, he will realize that, and even more, and he will use this against me. Sir John says, look, you asked me for suggestions, I'll give you a suggestion. This is what you can do. So Yazid sends a message to Ibn Ziyad, says to him that you stay in Basra, and from Basra you retain the governing of Basra and you go to Kufa. Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad prepares to go to Kufa. When he goes to Kufa, what does he do? He is very smart. Before he arrives into Kufa, he dresses himself, he disguises himself to look like Bani Hashim. Because he knows that Muslim ibn Aqil had come and he has told them that Imam Hussein is coming. So he disguises himself in a way and he dresses in the way that Bani Hashim dress. So people think that Imam Hussein has come. When he enters into Kufa, people think Imam Hussein has come. So they all welcome him, they say, Ibn Rasulullah, we welcome you, until he gets to the door of the palace. When he gets to the door of the palace, Nu'man ibn Bashir sees him from the door of the palace. Nu'man ibn Bashir also thinks that it is Imam Hussein. Nu'man ibn Bashir says that Ibn Rasulullah will not leave this palace. When he gets to the door of the palace, Ibn Ziyad takes off his face covering, his veil. And he says, I am Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, I've been sent by Yazid to remove you, you have been removed from your position, I am now the governor of Kufa. When he comes, he takes over, now Nu'man ibn Bashir has to be removed. Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, the first order that he gives is that anybody who is seen with Muslim ibn Aqil or hosts Muslim ibn Aqil or associates with Muslim ibn Aqil will be killed. Now, Muslim ibn Aqil realizes that no longer he can stay at the house of Mukhtar because his father-in-law is not the governor anymore. So he changes his location. He goes to the house of Hani ibn Urwa. Now he goes to the house of Hani ibn Urwa. I'm leaving out all the details. He goes to the house of Hani ibn Urwa, and now there's curfew in Kufa. Nobody can go out after the time of Isha. Anybody seen with Muslim ibn Aqil, he will be. Hani ibn Urwa is taken in to the palace of Ibn Ziyad. He's called into the palace of Ibn Ziyad. Whilst the people of his tribe are waiting outside, he's killed inside the palace. They tell him that his people ask, where is he? Say, we're talking with him, we're negotiating with him. Inside, he's already been killed. Muslim ibn Aqil now has no host, no place to go. Nobody wants to be seen with him. Anybody seen with him will be killed. He's in Kufa, and he's a resident of Medina. Where does he go? He's walking around the streets of Kufa until he gets tired and he knocks on the door. He knocks on the door and he says that, a woman answers the door and he says that, can I have some water? She gives him some water and he has the water and he sits down on her doorstep. She says to him, why are you sitting here? Don't you know that the situation in Kufa is not good? Go to your home. Muslim ibn Aqil, he says, and whenever I recall this story, I always think to myself that someone who is as brave as Muslim ibn Aqil, how would he have said this? He says, where does one go who has no home? Where does the one who has no home, where does he go? So she says, who are you? When he tells her that I am Muslim ibn Aqil from Bani Hashim, she takes him into her house. And she says that, you are the son of our master. How can we let you be? She takes him into the house. Her son is working for Ibn Ziyad. Everybody is working for Ibn Ziyad at that time. There's no option and no choice. Either you work for Ibn Ziyad or you die. So he comes into the house and he hears that there's somebody in the room. He finds out, he goes and reports to Ibn Ziyad that the person you're looking for is in my house. Early the next morning, there's the sound of horsemen coming to the door. The woman says, I don't want you to go outside because you'll be killed. Hazrat Muslim says that, I know that I will be killed, but I don't want your house to be involved because of me. I don't want your house to be attacked because of me. How much reverence for other people's property Bani Hashim had. That I don't want your house to be attacked because of keeping me under refuge. Hazrat Muslim goes out. Muhammad ibn Ash'ath has been sent by Ibn Ziyad with 500 men. The battle commences after the Fajr prayer, outside the house. Muhammad ibn Ash'ath goes short on men. The Maqatil states that he sends a message to Ibn Ziyad. He says, I need more men. Ibn Ziyad says, I've sent you to arrest one person. Why do you need more men? Muhammad ibn Ash'ath sends a message back to him. He says, Ibn Ziyad, do you think that we're fighting the son of Kufa's greengrocer? We're fighting Muslim ibn Aqil ibn Abi Talib. We're fighting Muslim ibn Aqil ibn Abi Talib, and sufficient for his bravery is to state that every single teenager and youth in Karbala had learned the art of sword fighting from Muslim ibn Aqil. He's the grandson of Abu Talib. What do you think? We're fighting some ordinary person? Ibn Ziyad sends reinforcements. Even after reinforcements, they still are not able to capture him. Then what happens? Then what do? They say, look, we cannot arrest him like this. What shall we do? They say, take the square of the earth where he is fighting and dig around it. So they dig around it and they make a trail. And then they cover it with leaves. They cover it with leaves so that when Hazrat Muslim's horse comes forward, it falls into the ditch. When it falls into the ditch, now they surround him and they arrest him. As they are arresting him, Hazrat Muslim says, this is the first deception. This is the first deception. They arrest him and they take him to the palace of Ibn Ziyad. Somebody says, you didn't say salam to the Amir. Muslim says, Mali Amir illa al-Hussein. I don't have any master except for Hussein. I don't have any master except for Hussein. Ibn Ziyad says, you will be killed. But if you have any final requests. If you have any final requests. He says, I have a debt to some people in Kufa. I want my armor to be sold and my debt to be paid. I want to be given a burial and I want a message sent to my master Hussein not to come to Kufa. One of the riwayat states that he was given water to drink. When he tried to drink the water because his mouth was injured, the cup became full of blood. Another cup of water was brought. When he tried to drink it again, that cup also full of blood. He was not able to have the water. They took him up to the roof of the palace. When they took him to the roof of the palace, he said, I want to be given time to pray a 2 rakat prayer. Muslim ibn Aqil prayed the 2 rakat prayer. Then he turned towards Makkah and he said, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Hussein alayhi salam had left Makkah. The caravan was traveling towards Kufa. Abbas was on one side, Ali Akbar was on the other side. All of a sudden, in the midst of traveling, Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, Wa alaykum as-salam ya Muslim. Hazrat Abbas says, Oh my master, to whose salam were you replying? He says, whose salam were you replying? Hussein alayhi salam says, Abbas, look between my 2 fingers. As they look between the fingers, they see the moment of Muslim being killed and his body being thrown off the roof of the palace. As they see the moment of Muslim's body being thrown off the roof of the palace, all of the shuhada, their heads would be mounted onto the lances, their bodies would be paraded through the city of Kufa, but Muslim is the first one whose head is put on a lance, is placed on the gate of the city of Kufa, his body is paraded through the city of Kufa. Hussein alayhi salam stops the caravan and he says to one of the ladies, he says, bring to me the daughter of Muslim. He says, bring to me the daughter of Muslim Hamida. When Hussein alayhi salatu salam, he's presented with Hamida, the daughter of Muslim, he says, sit in my lap. She sits in his lap and Hussein alayhi salatu salam starts to stroke her hair. When he strokes her hair, she says, oh my uncle Hussein, what is the news of my father Muslim? He says, what is the news of my father Muslim? You are treating me like the people treat the orphans. You're treating me like the people treat the orphans. Hussein alayhi salam says, Hamida, from now on consider me to be your father. I haven't read this anywhere, but my heart says that on the night of Sham Ghariba, Sakina would have remembered this moment very much and said, oh my father, when my uncle Muslim died, you were there to give consolation to Hamida, but when you died, there was no one there to give me consolation except somebody would come with the whip and somebody would come to steal the earrings and somebody would slap my cheeks. Allah, على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلب